Lord. Kim Cornish over in the Lordco lane with the 77 Mustang running Sportsman also, as well as Pro, going up against Dan Piskachuk with the 88 Mustang out of Burnaby. Attention in the pits, attention in the pits. Super Pro, your call to the staging lanes. Lanes 1 through 4. Super Pro, lanes 1 through 4. Standby call motorcycle, standby call motorcycle. Lordco Lane out of Hillsboro, Oregon, Steve Watkins. Tower Side, Steve Baskerville, both running a couple Ford Mustangs. The action time going to Watkins, 0:13 to 2:04 for Baskerville. Getting to the top end first is going to be Lordco Lane with a 12:05, 116 miles an hour to a 12:09, 118 for Baskerville. Haley Christensen out of Surrey, 67 C10 pickup truck. Going up against Stormy Newcomb from Camano Island, Washington with the 99 S10. Brought to you by SBB Racing, PV Hills Machines, Arco Machining. Time for Haley to a 30:60 for Stormy. Stopping the timers first will be the TCS side, 13:17 at 104 miles an hour to 13:17 at 101 for the Lordco lane. Veronica Hodgson out of Mission City with a 69 Dodge Dart, Tower side of the racetrack, going up against Colin Moore out of Chilliwack with a 63 Ford Fairlane. Veronica is sponsored by Lordco. She's the 2019 King of the Track, 2017 Sportsman champion. She's got the better reaction time in 0:19 to an 0:35. In the TCS side, stops the timers first with an 11:82 at 109 miles an hour to a 13:80 at 98 miles an hour. Tony Kamatsky, can you call the tower? Eric Britton, the little dragster, runs 13:46, 101 miles an hour to Colin Jackson. 11:44 at 117 miles an hour. Brennan Piskachuk. Brennan Piskachuk. Yes, Tony, that little dragster just ran in Sportsman. Okay, he just ran, so he should be on the return road someplace. Bill Wells out of Mission City, 79 Malibu Wagon, Tower Side, sponsored by TNT Auto Parts. 82 years young, 60 years of racing, thanks to Jim Banky. Malibu Wagon, Lordco Lane. reaction time going to the Lord Coe Lane in 072 to a 147 Tower Side. Getting to the top end first was Tower Side, 1148, 113 miles an hour to a 1259 at 103 for the wagon. Jessica Armstrong out of Chilliwack with a 75 Dodge. Sponsored by Armstrong and Monroe Marketing, Roderick Family Racing. Is Rhoda Bowen out of Alder Grove, 55 Meteor. Better reaction time going to the Lord Coe Lane with an 015 to a red lighting 031 for Jessica. Getting at the top end first was the Lord Coe Lane, 1294, 100 miles an hour to a 1329 at 102 for Jessica. Eric Hansen out of North Vancouver going up against Nick Douglas with the 68 Dart. Nick's the 23-24 Sportsman track champion. Eric sponsored by Broadway Refrigeration. Lighting start over here in the TCS lane. Nick Douglas with an 034 reaction time. Getting to the top end first was the Lord Coe Lane on 1178, 112 miles an hour. TCS side at 1209 at 109. Jim Mantle from Black Creek, BC with the 77 Pacer. TCS lane. Kevin McCauley out of Maple Ridge with the 83 Cutlass. Brought to you by BDL Automotive. He's an old school guy, like he's old. The red lighting start. Too much coffee this morning, I guess. An 087 reaction time from Jimmy Mantle. And the Cutlass gets there with a 1160, 113 miles an hour to a 1415 at 91 miles an hour. Joel Smith out of Abbotsford, the 07 Chevy pickup truck. Tower Side, Richard Love out of Osoyoos, with the 89 S10. Oh, 0 reaction time. A perfect light. A 046 reaction time for Richard Love. Richard gets there first with an 1158, 111 miles an hour. Joel gets there with a 1679 at 79 miles an hour. Mark Ferguson out of Harrison Mills, BC with the 02 Firebird. Last car coming up in Sportsman. Then we're going to be doing a little track prep, quick spray down the track, little starting line touch up, and then we'll be getting into Super Pro. Mark goes through with a 1253 at 108 miles an hour. Attention in the pits. Attention in the pits. Motorcycles, you guys should be in lane 6. Hot Rod to lanes 1 and 2. Hot Rod, lanes 1 and 2. Standby call, Super Pro. Hot Rods to 1 and 2. Standby call, Super Pro. Joel Smith goes 036, red. And stops the timers with 1680 at 80 miles per hour. Lord Coe Lane goes through 1280 at 101 miles per hour. Kevin McCauley out of Maple Ridge, an 83 Cutlass. Sponsored by BDL Automotive, old school. Lordco Lane, Dan Piskachek from Burnaby, an 88 Mustang. Macaulay goes through with an 1162, 113 miles an hour to a 1436 at 93 miles an hour for Dan. Sylvia Hookstons out of Maple Ridge, 66 Ford Mustang. Steve Baskerville out of West Vancouver with the 2022 Mustang GT. Top end first, looks like it's going to be the TCS lane with an 1137, 117 miles an hour to a 1212 at a $1.16. Colin Moore out of Chilliwack with the 63 Fairlane, going up against Richard Love from Osuyas with the 89 S10. Sponsored by Lightning Wash and Detail, SS Motorsports. So door slammers, if you guys have not paid Shelley your membership dues yet, when you get called down to the lanes, make sure you have that money, okay? Veronica Hodgson, Tower Side, the 69 Dodge, sponsored by Lordco, which is the 2019 King of that Track champ, 2017 Sportsman champion. Bill Wells, he's just 82 years young. 60 years of racing. He's from Mission, 79 Malibu. Better reaction time going to Veronica in 070 to his 219. Bill gets there first with 1156, 113 to her 1187, 109 miles per hour. Roland Lowen out of Aldergrove, the 55 Meteor. TCS lane. Lordco side of the racetrack is Colin Jackson out of Abbotsford, 77 Datsun pickup truck. Better reaction time going Tower Side, 042 to 069. Kim Cornish and Steve Watkins. Watkins from Hillsboro, Oregon with that 2018 Ford Mustang. Kim Cornish from Mission City with the 77 Ford Mustang. The reaction time going to Steve Watkins at 121 to Kim's 110. What's going on? TCS lane gets there first with 1182, 111 miles an hour to the Lordco lanes 1209 at 115. Next pair of cars, Haley Christensen up from Surrey, 67 Chevy C10. Jimmy Mantle from Black Creek with the 77 Pacer over there in the Lordco lane. Haley with an 024 reaction time to Jim's 111 reaction time. Haley's going to get there first. Stops the timers with an 1140, 117 miles an hour to Jim's 1418 at 91 miles per hour. Jason Mercer from Chestermere, Alberta with the 81 Malibu. Mark Ferguson from Harrison Mills, BC with the 02 Firebird. Attention in the pits. Super Pro, your call. The lanes 3 and 4. Super Pro, your call. The lanes 3 and 4. Super Pro. Stand by, call, door slammers. Stand by, call, door slammers. And if you haven't paid Shelly yet, make sure you come down with your money. She'll collect it from you in the lanes. Right, Shelly? Eric Hansen out of North Vancouver, 68 Dodge. Going up against Brendan Pistachuk with the Mustang. Brandon sponsored by Buick Ford Motor. Eric sponsored by Broadway Refrigeration and Comesh. Our reaction time going to Brandon with an 068-207 for Eric. The top end first was the TCS lane 1218 at 109, 1312 at 101 for Brandon. Nick Douglas back with the 68 Dodge Dart, the 23-24 Sportsman track champion. Jessica Armstrong out of Chilliwack, 75 Dodge, sponsored by Armstrong and Monroe Marketing, Roderick Family Racing, and she started in high school drags racing. Final call, Hot Rod, and 1 on 2. Final call, Hot Rod, 1 and 2.
Do a long standby. Don't really know the difference, but you're on standby. Yeah, we got Haley Christensen coming up in the left lane, driving the 67 C10 Chaotic Customs, taking on Jessica Armstrong in the 75 Dodge. Jessica dialed in with a 1324, Haley with an 1160. So Haley's going to have to sit around for quite some time here. And Haley taking the win, going 1177 on the 1160. Hey, that was a really short standby. Old Car Center Hot Rod. We're going to call you down to the staging lanes. Old Car Center Hot Rod. We need you in the staging lanes, please. And Door Slammer, just a reminder, you are now on a short standby, I guess they would call it. Kids these days, these cool fandangled words. Stormy Newcomb in the left lane, driving the 99 S10, taking on Brandon Piskasak in the right lane in that Ford Mustang. Brandon turning on the win light, going 13-14 on the 13-14, 0-13 on the tree. Stormy was 0-59, 12-87 on the 12-81. Eric Hansen in the 68 Dodge, taking on Colin Moore in the 63 Ford Fairlane. Eric dialed in with a 1214. Colin, 1384. And Eric Hansen going 1214 with a 5 on the 1214. 042 on the tree, getting it done, taking the win. Colin Moore, 1377 on the 84, breaking out. Giving the win over to Eric Hansen. Steve Watkins in the left lane here in the 2018 Ford Mustang, taking on Jim Mantle in that little 77 Pacer. Jim Mantle dialed in with a 1420. Steve Watkins, 1210. Steve doing the best he can to chase down Jim, but not getting it done. Jim Mantle going 14-20 with a 1 on the 14-20, taking the win. Steve had the advantage off the starting line, was 0.28 to Jim's 0.44, but fortunately didn't get it done down track, and Jim's moving on to the next round. Roland Lowen in the 55 Meteor, taking on Sylvia Hoogstens in the 66 Ford Mustang. Roland 12.84, Sylvia 11.61. And Sylvia turning on the red light. Roland will be moving on to the next round. Roland Lowen going 12.89 on 12.84. Sylvia 11.49 on the 11.61. Going way too fast, but she'd already lost it down here on the starting line, so it did not matter. We got Mark Ferguson in the 2002 Firebird, taking on Veronica Hodgson in the 69 Dodge. Mark dialed in with a 12.54, Veronica 11.87. Veronica going 11.87 with a 2 on the 11.87, taking the win. Veronica 0.72 on the tree, Mark 0.55. Mark was 12.57 on the 54, but Veronica doing a better job, and she's moving on to the second round. Nick Douglas back up here again now in Sportsman. Good guy, Nick Douglas. Big dial in, Nick. We like it. 11.82 in the left lane. Steve Baskerville, 12.21 in the right lane. Pretty close here off the starting line. Should be a good race down track. Nick Douglas winning on the double breakout. Nick Douglas going 11.80 on the 11.82. Steve Baskerville 12.15 on the 12.21. So Nick Douglas moving on to the second round in Sportsman. And now we got Dan Piskasak in the 88 Mustang drop top convertible. I'm assuming that the Piskasak family is a Mustang family now that they got 2 of them out here. So Dan dialed in with a 14.38 in that little GT drop top, taking on Colin Jackson in the 77 Datsun. Colin chasing him down. Big starting line advantage off the tree for one of them here. And it was Colin going double 05 to Dan's 235. So Colin had quite the advantage there and parlayed that into a win, going 11.87 on the 11.60. Moving on to the second round. Richard Love's back up here in Sportsman. Right, driving that little 89 S10, dialed in with 11.66. Jason Mercer also back up here in the wagon in Sportsman, dialed in with a 12.49. I'm going to make a final call out there. Final call for Old Car Center Hot Rod. Old Car Center Hot Rod, you should be down in the staging lanes. If you're not, get there as soon as you can, please. And Jason Mercer taking the win, going 12.69 on the 12.49, taking out Richard Love. Richard Love breaking out, going 11.63 on the 11.66. And Kim Cornish up here in the 77 Mustang, taking on Bill Wells in the 79 Malibu. Bill Wells, like big shout out to TNT Auto Parts. He's 82 years young, 60 years of racing. Thanks to Jim Banky. If it weren't for Jim Banky, Bill's rear end would still not be happy. So Jim Banky getting Bill all fixed up so he can get out here and get racing. Hopefully take a win here. But he doesn't. Unfortunately, Kim Cornish, well, not unfortunately, good for Kim, sorry. Kim Cornish moving on to the second round, going 11.97 on the 91. Unfortunately for Bill Wells, not moving on, going 11.60 on the 11.60, but was 141 on the tree, and that's where it was lost. So we got Joel Smith up here driving his kids' truck, kids' junior street truck. Had a lot of wins in that truck. It's a very winning truck, so maybe Joel can parlay that into some wins here. Dialed in with a 16.80, Kevin McCauley driving the 83 Cutlass, 11.62. Kevin's going to have to sit around for about 5 seconds here. Pretty close off the starting line. We'll see how it plays out at the finish line here. And Joel Smith not moving on. Kevin McCauley taking the win, 11.64 with a 4 on the 11.62. Joel going 16.84 on the 16.80.
Well, here we are back to Sportsman. Veronica Hodgson and Haley Christensen. Haley Christensen in that chaotic Customs 1967 C10 Chevy pickup truck over there in the right lane. Patinaed out, very cool looking. Dialed in at 11.60. Haley going to take on Veronica Hodgson. Veronica, former champion in this class. Behind the wheel of her 69 Dodge Dart, dialed in at 11.87. So the Dart in the left lane will leave first. Pickup truck will then have to chase her down. Four ball split. Here we go. Couple of green lights. 13 thousandths separate them by the reaction times. Finish line says Veronica Hodgson is moving on to round number 2. One above with a 6. 11.88 with a 6 on the 11.87 dial. Haley actually had a little bit of a starting line advantage, but came up 11.65 on the 11.60. Now Kevin McCauley and Roland Lowen. Lowen in the left lane, dialed 1289. Behind the wheel of the 55 Mercury. Nice little wheels up launch. Kevin McCauley in his old school Cutlass. McCauley's your winner. So Roland Lowen getting to the finish line first by quite a margin to be under the 1289 dial with a 1283. Now Jim Mantle in his stock eliminator 1977 Pacer. Jim Mantle will be here in a couple of weekends running the National Open. He'll have a stock super stock combo class. So Eric Hansen trying to run down that little Pacer in the left lane. Can he do it? No, he can't. Jim Mantle, well, actually, yeah, he can. Got to the stripe first by 17 thousandths of a second, but that was his undoing as he went 12-14 with a 9 on the 12-16 dial. Jim Mantle was 2 above and safe, and he's moving on. Now Kim Cornish and Brendan Piskacek. Piskacek in the right lane. Couple of green lights, couple of Mustangs. Only one of them's gonna move on, and that's Brendan. 13-17 on the 13-14 dial, 101 miles an hour. Kim Cornish, a little too quick, 11.89 on the 11.94. So the little blue Mustang coming back in Sportsman. Now Jason Mercer and Nick Douglas. Douglas in the right lane. 1968 Dart. He's your reigning Sportsman champion. Jason Mercer out of Chestermere, Alberta. Driving a borrowed car, wants to thank Kevin McCauley for giving him something to drive this weekend. So Mercer dialed 1249. Nick Douglas will do the chasing. He's dialed 1205. So a couple of green lights. Mercer out in front in the wagon trying to stay there. Doesn't look like he's gonna. Nick Douglas turns the wind light on. 12:11 on the 12:05. Douglas was pretty awesome at the starting line. 0:05. Mercer was fairly solid with an 0:44. So Nick Douglas coming back. Now Colin Jackson. A cool little Datsun pickup. Attention in the pits, hot rod. Standby call going out to hot rod, and I'm told it's going to be a fairly short one, so start getting ready, guys. Hot rod, this is your short standby call.
So we're going to move into our still in our Sportsman category here. Moving into Sportsman, sorry. Jim Mantle with a 1420 up there on the dial-in board. Driving that little 77 Pacer, taking on Kevin McCauley in the 83 Cutlass with an 1162. Pretty healthy starting line advantage for one of the drivers here. Is Kevin McCauley going to do his best to reel back in that little Pacer? But to no avail. Jim Mantle moving on, going 14.23 with a 5 on the 14.20. Kevin McCauley was 11.72 on the 11.62, but Kevin was 131 on the tree, and Jim was 0.33. Colin Jackson in the left lane, driving the 77 Datsun, facing off against Brennan Piskacek in the right lane in the Ford Mustang. Colin dialed with 1160. Brennan 1315. And Brennan going double 07 on the tree, taking the win, going 1318 on the 1315. Colin was a 1161 with a 9 on the 1160, but it was 026 on the tree. So Brandon moving on to the next round. Bringing up our final pair of our Vancouver Car Wrap Sportsman category, taking Veronica Hodgson in the 69 Dodge, racing off against Nick Douglas in the 68 Dodge. So the battle of the Dodge is here. Veronica dialed in with 1187. Nick Douglas with a 1205. And Nick Douglas going 1205 with a 4 on the 1205. Taking out Veronica Hodgson. Veronica was broke out with an 1183 on the 1187. So Nick Douglas moving on to the next round.
Sportsman semifinal round. Down to 3 cars. Jim Mantle, Brendan Piskacek, on the starting line right now. Mantle in the Pacer, dialed 1420. There he goes. Piskacek gonna chase him down, or he's gonna try anyway. He's dialed 1318 in the Mustang. Piskacek with the win light. It's getting fast out there, people. Everybody's breaking out. Not by just a little bit. Piskacek was under by 500ths. Jim Mantle runs under by 800ths. So that's going to set up our final. However, Nick Douglas is going to get a time trial. Douglas 0.24 to start things off. Roach, what is that thing you're sitting on? Oh, would that have been funny if he'd have stalled it? Because he almost did, right? Brandon Piskacek in the right-hand lane down 13-16. Nick Douglas, left side, has had 12.05 on that car all day long. Douglas, 1968 Dart. Just FYI, Dart, according to my computer screen, is spelled D-O-D-T. But that's all right. Piskacek out in front. Can he stay there? How about that? Dead on with a 5. Not sure what happened to Nick Douglas, but he comes up 12.96 at just 81 miles an hour. Piskacek was awfully lucky that he did not hand that back. Took almost 9/10 of a second stripe at the finish line to be dead on with a 5. Now, in his defense, he was down to 87 miles an hour, so I think he underestimated how quick it must be getting out there. That's the thing about racing at Mission Raceway. We start off pretty quick in the morning, slow down in the afternoon, and then it gets real quick past dinner time.